Welcome to People, Places, and Things, a travel podcast that brings you captivating stories, fascinating people, and unforgettable destinations from all around the world. I'm your host, Ryan Lowe. Let's dive into this journey together. On today's episode, we have Vidar Øksendal from Norway. Welcome, Vidar.
Thank you, Ryan.
First, I want to talk about your past. How was your upbringing in Norway? What was your childhood like?
My childhood was quite traditional for Norway. I think I grew up in a small street in a neighborhood just outside the town of Flekkefjord in the south of Norway. We grew up without telephones. I didn't get my first cell phone until I was 18, so we had the freedom of playing in the streets outside. Lots of kids in my street, so we played games and had a lot of fun. I was the oldest of 4 siblings, and anyway, I grew up there and didn't travel much or do anything special those first years of my life, just staying at home, school, nothing out of the ordinary until I was 16. That's when I started making friends in the surrounding streets, and when I turned 18, my social ring expanded quite a bit.
Awesome, man. I wanted to talk about what was your inspiration to travel? What drove you to see more and want to go out and explore?
That's a good question. I've thought about that many times. I'm really not sure where the first spark came from, but I do remember turning 18, getting my license and my first car, and one of the first things I did was going to a local travel agency, asking if there were any ferries going from the south of Italy over to Egypt, because I wanted a picture of my car with the pyramids. That idea didn't come into fruition, but at least already then I had the thoughts of doing trips out of the ordinary. And I know some of my parents and grandparents were explorers, travelers, traveling for work and stuff, and so I might have it in my blood or something subconsciously, but still I've always felt the need to expand my horizon.
Yeah, I think that's embedded in the DNA of a person, the desire to travel for sure,
Yes.
and the other way around also. Um, we met in Czechia, formerly the Czech Republic, on the starting point of the Mongol Rally 2019. They essentially built a makeshift city 30 minutes outside of Prague, which was awesome. It was in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah.
and they had all these games and everything. It was so fun, man. It was so fun meeting you. We parked right next to you
Yes.
because that was the next available spot. And you have this really cool Ford Fiesta that you modified. Talk about your car and what sparked your idea to turn your car into a badass rally vehicle.
Thank you. Yeah, I also remember that start. It was really nice meeting you then and getting to know you. And a really cool place, that Junktown, as they call it. Well, I had one of these cars before for a year and a half, older version of this car, and I really it really grew on me, and it was a really solid, simple car, easy to fix. So when I got the car that I still have now, the one I drove on the rally, that was it was specifically that car I was looking for. But then I didn't have any big plans when I bought it to do big trips like this. But I bought it in 2012, I think, and already in 13 I did a trip, and then several trips that made the car gradually evolve into what it's become. Small tweaks here and there, and small adjustments and small modifications to make it fit my needs on big trips like this. And and now at this point, there are so many trips and so many memories with this car that I couldn't possibly turn it in for a newer one. So I just have to keep it running to, as I say, grow the legend of the Fiesta.
Yeah, it is legendary. I have this video on my phone where you demonstrate the shower you built onto your car.
Yeah.
How many different mods do you have like this that you integrated into your vehicle?
Well, it started for a previous rally. Me and a friend took with creating the roof rack. We made it out of aluminium and fold, so we could fold it out.
Okay. Think you're breaking up a little bit. Do you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Um,
Can you hear me?
so yep. So the roof rack, expand on the roof rack a little bit. You said you built with aluminum?
Yeah, we built that a few years ago in aluminum. Me and a friend for the first big rally I took with car, and it's well custom made by us with good mounts on the roof. That's been reinforced at a later point. And also on the roof rack, we can unfold it to sleep on the roof, like put a mosquito net up there. And when it's in the folded position, we have the water tank up there, extra gas tank, and some table and chairs and stuff.
Oh, that's pretty awesome.
It's quite convenient.
Oh, I would say so. You basically got a tent on top of your car, right?
Yeah,
Proper
yeah.
bed. What was the first trip you did with the car? What was the first adventure you did with the Ford Fiesta?
The first adventure was in 2013. At that point, I had already started traveling to Ukraine, to the city of Kharkiv. It's the second biggest city in Ukraine in the far northeast. Already had a few friends there, so that summer 2013, I decided to drive there. I was also sponsored to a child in this SOS Children's Village outside of Kiev, so I combined that with visiting her there, filling up the car with some stuff, food, toys, and shoes and stuff to the children's home. So that was my first trip. 3 weeks. I drove there, stayed for a week, and from there I drove down to Dubrovnik in Croatia. A friend from Norway flew down to meet me there and joined me for a week until I drove home.
That's awesome. And you told me some of most of your inspiration was from Driven to Extremes. That's kind of how those guys inspired you a little bit.
Yes, there's a guy called Mac McKenney, a former SAS fighter pilot from Britain. We mailed it a few times in connection with some trips he was doing. I was applying to join them as a cameraman or something for it. I didn't do that anyway. I saw some of the videos he put out his channel regarding put together a team for like big entry, and after I had already done a few, recognized a lot of the things they were talking about, like criteria as to how to put together different minds that could work together under a high stress situation and environments like this trip can be sometimes.
Absolutely. We both very familiar with some the traveling challenges and
Yeah.
stuff you may face on the road. I wanted to ask you what were some of the challenge some of the challenges you faced along the way in the Ford Fiesta on the first trip and the trips that follow.
Well, I remember the first trip to Ukraine in 2013. I hadn't planned for anything. I didn't. I barely brought my own luggage and no spare parts and no tools. So when at that point I came to Poland, and the charging regulator on my alternator was worn out, so the alternator wasn't producing any more current, and I had to basically roll into the next town when the battery was flat. But somehow that small town was just packed with small shops, garages. But it was Saturday and afternoon already, so most of them were closed. But I met this really cool, friendly old mechanic, and he helped me for several hours trying to get this part from my alternator. At first, he didn't understand exactly what I meant, but then I was able to show him, and in the end, we drove several miles to meet a friend of his with this part, then drove back, and he got me back on the road. And he didn't even know any English, so that was really a fun experience. But other than that, there are so many other breakdowns along the road. Like we broke down in this big monsoon storm once in India, in the middle of a 6-lane highway, in the middle of the night. And I remember standing into the back of my car looking for stuff, and big trucks came driving past, and the water just splashed all over my back and into the car. Nobody stopped, but eventually we got the car back on the road. And when we drove in 2016 over the Pamir Highway in Tajikistan, we were up at, how much was it? 16,000 feet, I think, 4,600 meters above sea level.
Yeah, it's pretty high.
Yeah, that's quite high, and you could really feel the low oxygen even on the car, on the engine. And that's one of the issues with driving a small engine vehicle, is that I have problems driving slowly because I don't have the momentum to drive slow when I have to. So I need to rev the engine and use the clutch.
Yeah, so in 2019 we drove up and I had it pegged first gear. I had that Nissan Micra pegged first gear, Vidar, with all our gear, everything, and we barely creeped up over the pass. Barely.
Yeah. Yes, I know. And it's really yeah, it's really challenging. Sometimes you don't even know if you will make it up or not, or have to turn back.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, we overheated 3 times trying to get up there.
Yeah, but it's fun. It's the challenges and the unexpected challenges that's the episodes that make the best memories.
Absolutely. So how did you find the adventurists? What was your first Mongol rally? And how did you find these guys?
My first Mongol rally was in 2016. I don't know exactly when I found them, but I remember it was sometime early 15 because maybe it was by coincidence. But anyway, I found their site. I read about what they were doing, and I just fell in love with the whole concept and the idea. And I almost signed up for the Mongol Rally 2015. Anyway, I wouldn't have had time to prepare then. So anyway, I signed up for 2016, and during the next year, I found a teammate, and we started preparing the car and ourselves and everything as well as we could. And that first trip was really exciting because everything was new to us, and we didn't really know what to expect. And even though we had a planned route and what we wanted to do, but still, it was really fun doing. That's that year we started in England also.
Very nice. What was your route? What was your route that year? Talk. So you started in England, and talk about your route a little bit on that.
The route that year was, even for us that time, a little bit special because I think one team once prior to this had gone through China, and we had planned. Well, I can get to that. Let's see here later. We Our route was going through Europe. And that year, there were 3 different official Mongol Rally parties through Europe. One in Germany, one in Austria, I think, and one on the Constance Black Sea shore of Romania. So we had plans of going through Romania and then going up to Kharkiv in Ukraine, and then going down to Crimea, crossing the Caucasus, going through Iran, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and from Kyrgyzstan we had planned. We had teamed up with two other teams. So we were a three-team convoy that were supposed to go through the Xinjiang province in the northwest of China into Mongolia, and then headed to the finish line from there. But anyway, on the route, we had plans of going through all the states we could. So at first we went through Transnistria, the breakaway states in the east of Moldova. In 2016, we also had this big, like stuffed moose's head on the back of our car for 6,000 kilometers from Norway to Ukraine. It was a gift to a pub there called Full Moose Pub that I had visited earlier, and they had this painted moose's head over the entrance, and I thought I should bring them a real head once. So that was a good opportunity to do that. But anyway, then when we got to Ukraine, we wanted to go down to Crimea, but at that point the Russians had already taken it, so we couldn't enter Ukraine from Crimea from Ukraine. So from Kharkiv, we drove into Russia and then crossed the east side of Ukraine on Russian territory, and then we took the ferry over to Crimea. It was before they had finished the bridge that is there now. So we got to Crimea also, and then in Georgia, we wanted to go to like the breakaway or the territory of Abkhazia and South Ossetia, but we didn't manage to do that. We had already applied for a visa for Abkhazia before we left, but we didn't hear back from them. But anyway, still then we crossed over to Georgia into Armenia, and in Armenia we drove into the Nagorno-Karabakh region that has recently been taken back by Azerbaijan this year.
Yep.
And so we managed to visit some of those places. But still, when we got to Kyrgyzstan, we were there at the time that we had planned to be there. But there was bad, poor communication. And there were some rumors about difficulties getting into Mongolia and stuff. So that three-team convoy through China kind of dissolved. So even though everything was in order with paperwork and everything. So instead of going through China, then we drove up to Kazakhstan and did some driving around in Kazakhstan before turning back through Russia to Ukraine. So we didn't get to the finish line, but still it was a 8 week drive with all the things you can expect from the Mongol Rally. So it was really, really cool and exciting, and lots of unexpected things and experiences. I have a lot of pictures and videos that I plan to do some YouTube stuff with someday.
That's awesome. You could have an awesome channel because I know you have so much content to provide. What was on that rally? What was the most memorable moment for you? You had drive. I know there was a ton, but is there one that sticks out for you in that 2016 trip?
Let me think. One of them was when we came through Moldova and into Transnistria. It's like the last part of Soviet Union. It was night, and they were quite strict with paper and everything, and like stone cold faces. And but then finally, when everything was in order, the paperwork, and we were like free to go, then they put on these big smiles, and they had a big photo shoot with a moose on the back of the car, and they really had a good time. And unfortunately, we weren't allowed to take pictures with them, but that was a really cool experience. And they even went inside to get like the big hat from the big boss, who of course wasn't there on the graveyard shift, and put it on the moose, and took some pictures with that also.
That's good. That's awesome, man.
Thank you.
So you've done 3 Mongol rallies, correct?
3, yes.
2018
The
was your next one?
16, 18 was the next one, yes. That was actually at the 2016 rally. We met my 2018 teammate in Kharkiv in Ukraine. He was also a car guy who had done like local small rallies in Ukraine, and he saw our car on the big city square in Kharkiv in 2016. So we became friends then and stayed in touch and still are now. And in 18, he came to Norway for a few days here, and we drove together from here down to Prague. That was the first year the launch party was from the same the Junktown where we started in 19 also. So we went down there, went through Romania, and then we went the same way back through Moldova and Transnistria up to Kharkiv, his hometown. And we had planned on going all the way through Russia over to Mongolia and then back again, because I was on a bit of a time schedule. So we had plans on doing the whole rally in 5 weeks. So we stayed for a few days there in Kharkiv, doing some charity stuff that he had arranged, and some other things. But then the day we were crossing from Ukraine into Russia, just by coincidence, I got my passport stamped first, and then it was his turn, and somehow I don't know exactly what happened, but he was red flagged by the FSB and expelled from Russia for 30 years.
Wow.
So we barely had time to talk before they had to put him back on the official Ukrainian side of the border. And I had already stamped my one of my double entry visa into Russia. So I just drove up to the next town of Belgrade on the Russian side. Slept a bit in the car. I was supposed to sleep then because I'd been awake for a while, so I was supposed to sleep and he drive. But then I was alone there, and I didn't know what to do. I couldn't go to the finish line and back alone, both money-wise and time-wise. And we talked a bit about me going back to Ukraine and doing some stuff around in Europe, maybe going around down to the Turkey or around that area. But anyway, it ended up with me driving up to Moscow, meeting a friend there for a couple of days, and then I flew to Thailand for a little vacation
Oh, okay. Yeah,
instead. And then I flew back up to Moscow, of course, later, got the car back, and then I drove back to Ukraine again and home from there.
wow, that's a hell of an adventure.
So that rally was a bit, yeah, so that rally was a bit shortened by the unforeseen circumstances, but still an experience.
That's awesome. That's what makes it though, those unforeseen circumstances. It sucks, that your friend couldn't go through Russia, but maybe it was for the best. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe, yes, yes. We in the on the 16 rally there was a big the no man's land when you exit one country and the no man's land before you enter the next one. There was a 25-kilometer long stretch of no man's land between Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan, and there was one team there who came just behind us. That when he exited Turkmenistan, no, I mean Tajikistan, some of his pages in his passport loosened. So when he came to entering Kyrgyzstan, they deemed his passport as not valid. So he was in no man's land, unable to enter the next country. So he had to go back. He had to backtrack to the capital of Tajikistan, and that was a 5-day trip. I think he hitchhiked with some military vehicles and stuff. He was Indian passport holder, so he had to backtrack all the way back there and come back to India to renew his passport.
oh my goodness. That's kind of what the Mongol rally is about though, right? Like they want like they want you to get stuck or figure out a way to make it happen, right?
Yes, that it's supposed to be challenging, and you're supposed to you're supposed to how to say it? It's a guaranteed grit.
Yep, exactly. Um, so going into 19 when I met you in the Mongol Rally, um, we what would your route was epic that year. I mean, every single one of us were like, wow, like talk about driving through Asia and kind of your route from the Czech Republic.
Yes, I think that might have been the biggest route yet for the Mongol Rally, or the longest one. It started with a friend of mine here. He already knew that I have done some traveling driving, and he had been traveling to Thailand for a long time, had an ex-wife from there, and I was visiting him once, and he said, "Hey, Vidar, have you ever driven to Thailand?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, should we do it?" And I said, "Yes, why not?" And that's how it started. At first, as a trip to Thailand, but then it evolved into. It was, of course, the same time period as the Mongol Rally, so I signed us up for the Mongol Rally to do that at the same time as driving to Thailand. So from Prague, we continued through Romania, did the beach party there, I think, in Constanza, then crossed into Turkey, visited Cappadocia, headed up north again to the Black Sea, and then directly south on the D915, if you know about that road in Turkey. It's usually one of the top 10 worst roads in the world, these YouTube videos. So we did that, did some historical stuff down there in Turkey. I visited Göbekli Tepe, for example. And then we drove along the border with northern Syria and northern Iraq on the way to Iran. I remember at one point we stopped to camp on the road just on the border with Iraq. And these three guys with machine guns came out of the woods in the middle of the night and walked towards us as we were putting up his tent. I slept inside the car then. Anyway, we didn't freak out, but somehow they were able to explain that they were Turkish border guards, and if we needed anything, they were up there. And don't drink the water from the creek; it's not good. But then we got into Iran, and we stayed with this family in Tehran, the capital, there for over a week, as the only visa we hadn't managed to finish before we left was the Pakistani visa. So we were in contact with the agent, visa agent in Norway, and waited a bit there. We were a bit nervous of starting a new visa application in Tehran because there might be problems with two active visa applications. But in the end, we got a transit visa at the embassy in Tehran for Pakistan, and then we just gunned for Pakistan. Very hot there, like 47, 8 degrees centigrade inside the car as we drove through the southern parts of Iran. It's called the Lot Desert, and according to satellite readings, it's at least previously it was the hottest place on Earth at one point. Anyway, through Pakistan, we had this military escort called the levies. It was one of the sub branches of the military, who escorted us all the way through the Balochistan province, south of Afghanistan, up to this city called Quetta. It was a province capital of Balochistan. And from there, we needed to get a document to be able to exit Balochistan. But we were unlucky again, as it was the Muslim holiday of Eid. So we had to stay there for 3 days waiting to get that document. We were a bit stressed because we had a set date. We had to be in Myanmar for the guide and the driving permits there. They were date specific. But anyway, we drove nonstop through all of India, and in the eastern part of India, that's the only time I ever fell asleep behind the wheel. But luckily, we were driving very slowly, and my partner was aware, so he woke me up before we hit something. And yeah. Then yes, from India, we didn't enter Nepal or Bhutan, even though the phone connected to the Bhutanese cell network at one point were close. We drove all through India about 5 days nonstop, just stopping to fill the tank. When we got to Myanmar, we could relax a little bit because then we had the guide with us, so we were 3 people in the car then. The guide, and we had driving permits, and we had hotels. So finally we could get a shower again and a little bit of sleep. And driving through Myanmar was interesting, as it was also an old British colony with a lot of British architecture and cultural heritage. And then finally we entered northern Thailand near Chiang Mai, headed down to Bangkok, and we stayed there for a few days. Like that was the first like goal of the trip, and my friend he got out there and stayed for a month, as I continued back home alone, or up to the finish line in Mongolia. So I continued up through Thailand into Laos, where I teamed up with 3 Swedish guys on motorbikes, as we were a 4 vehicle team then, splitting the cost of the Chinese guide and paperwork. A lot of people think it's a big problem driving into China. It's actually not, because it's just very expensive, but because you need a Chinese driver's license, you need Chinese plates on your vehicle, and you need state and province approval, driving permits. But the guide or the company that provides the guide do all that work. But it's just expensive. So for us, it was $8,000 with the guide, for the guide and paperwork, split 4 ways, so 2,000 on each of us. And they were driving bikes, so the guide, he joined me in the car, and that was nice. Anyway, about 3 weeks driving up through China. And anyway, when you drive in China, you're supposed to be with the guide at all times. You're not supposed to be driving your own foreign vehicle alone. But the last couple of days, I did drive alone, because the Swedes were going all the way east on a peninsula, shipping their bikes over to South Korea, and I was going in the opposite direction. So I asked the guide, can I just go up there alone instead of going all that way, just to turn back? And okay, that was okay. And at this point, one of the most memorable things on all my journeys happened in Beijing. I didn't connect the dots then, but I did later. That anyway, I put in Beijing in my GPS. No other specifications, just Beijing. And when you put a city's name into the Google Maps, it usually center of the city. So in Beijing, that's in Tiananmen Square. But as I was driving into Beijing, there were roadblocks. Okay, roadblock here, roadblock there, and I didn't think to just stop and okay, I can find a hotel here. And then suddenly I were able to come in on the backside of the roadblocks, and the main road through Beijing, past Tiananmen Square and the Forbidden City, is a 10-lane big freeway, motorway. Suddenly I'm the only car there, with thousands of police and military personnel on each side, and things happening. And finally I realized that this is it was the general safety rehearsal for next weekend's 70th anniversary of China. So I guess that was a big breach in the safety protocol that I was able to get inside the blockade in central Beijing with my Fiesta. But they stopped me eventually, kept me there for a few hours while they probably did some phone calls here and there and everywhere, and I had to show them the permits. But they never asked me about the guide. That surprised me a bit, but anyway, there was no problem, and after some hours, they let me loose. And I didn't stress. I let them do their thing, and finally that paid out. And from there, Beijing, I just the next day I gone up to Mongolia, crossed Mongolia in 2 days, and finally I was at the finish line in Ulan-Ude by Lake Baikal in Siberia. So third time lucky.
Third time's the charm, I guess.
Yes. So it was a big route. I got to the finish line 1 week before the adventurers had left. So the weekend before was the last of the finishing parties that they were officially there. But that doesn't matter. In the case that I still finished the Mongol Rally, even later is even better than earlier.
I would agree with you wholeheartedly on that. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
It's not
Yes.
about getting there
Yes.
first.
No. No.
I wanted to ask you, like, I know everyone was watching that knew you was following your trip because it was insane. Like, um, I think you had the craziest route on the whole out of every team on the Mongol Rally. Um,
Oh yes. I think so.
you did for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. Um, I wanted to ask you, what would be some advice you would give to listeners that want to prepare for a big rally like this? What would you impart to them, and how would they go about preparing for something like this?
Also a good question. That well, according to the adventurists, one should prepare as little as possible to have the biggest chance of adventure. But still, there are some things you have to prepare, and that's passport and visas, especially if you have a time frame. Some people do these really big trips where they do visas en route, but though that can be quite time consuming. So the only thing I would prepare is visas and the paperwork for the car or motorcycle and personal visas. And maybe, of course, I think most people would like to plan as much as possible, read up on the cities and countries they're traveling to be prepared. But if you're not prepared, you have a bigger chance of being positively surprised by what you encounter. Like Iran, the first time in 16 when I drove through Iran, I had no idea about Iran except that it was this maybe scary Muslim country that you hear about in the news. But that then and still now, it's the positive, uh, most positively surprising experience I've had on all my trips, especially the people in Iran. It's the most friendly people I've ever met. And of course, they're totally different to what you hear in media compared to the people are different from the government and the people running the country. And of course, trips like this with your own vehicle has a bit of a different challenge than like traveling on trains and buses and backpacking, being that you have your car with you. But still, as long as the car is running, they can fix it down there. And insurance-wise, you buy insurance on the border to each country, so it's not that problematic actually, and quite cheap also, as you sleep for free. You sleep in the car or in tents or in shelters that are quite cheap and for typical vacations. sleeping or hotels, it tends to be one of the biggest costs.
Yeah, I agree with that. And back to the Persians, I've never been to Iran, but uh, the reputation precedes them. They're the most hospitable. It's usually the media portrays a certain gives a certain image, and it's usually wrong, right? Everything I hear about countries that could be dangerous, once you get to them, it's the people are great, of course. It's usually just the government.
Yeah, that's true. Very true.
Um, so I want to shift gears a little bit to the beard struggle. So you've been doing some acting recently. What is your role? That it's such a cool concept. It's a beard company. Talk about that a little bit.
Thank you. Yeah, well, it was a bit of a coincidence. I had been like a stand-in earlier on this Norwegian show about some Vikings, and we had this common chat group there. And at one point later, there was a question there. Oh, we need a couple of bearded guys for this commercial shoot in Norway for this company called the Beard Struggle. So I answered, and I was the last one who were able to join them. This was October 2020, so in the midst of the corona pandemic and stuff. So we were like landlocked with, of course, people coming from abroad had the 2-week quarantine and stuff. But still, we had a full week of commercial shooting with the Beard Struggle, which is a Canadian company, and the owner is coming from Vancouver, and he's intrigued by the Viking mythology and all of that. Most of the product names are from the Viking saga and mythology. So these were all very, very professional with a director from New York, and we had cameramen and sound people and costume and makeup, and really professional. And a whole week shooting, mainly for Instagram and Facebook, like a vertical video format. And they were cut down to 1 minute commercial clips. So we did about 25 different videos then linking to like Viking games, and the Viking series, and like ending humoristically up in the use of one of the products, mainly beard oils, shampoos, and its rings and stuff. And he's expanded the shop since with different products. So that was really, really fun experience doing acting like that. Of course, we're with lines and the interaction of everything, and it could take up to 4 hours shooting what eventually was a 1 minute commercial with all the angles and everything. So long days, but I love the whole part of it: the filming, the meeting with the other actors and people, beautiful people, and well, the whole experience of that acting part. And we did another one a year later, October 2021, even bigger shoot then. And there's been some other things before and after also.
Yeah, no, I followed every single bit of that. I I
Yeah,
thought it was
really
very,
fun.
very intriguing. Very
Yeah,
intriguing.
thank you.
And it's very clever too. Everything was very well thought out, I thought. Do you do you have any uh, do you have any desire to act in the future or any roles coming up, or do you have anything you want to do in that industry?
Oh yes, I absolutely, but I haven't pursued it that actively lately. But I like acting, or it felt like natural to me to put on a role after what costume I had put on. But I'm um, I'm part of the local like comedy group here who does reviews. Is that's the doing like sketches and songs with local stuff, putting humoristic satire angle on things. So we're having a show here now in November, and actually this weekend, a few of us from the Beer Struggle are doing a shoot here in Norway. And then I was offered a role for a comedic pilot in a month's time with the same director from the director who did the Beer Struggle commercials. He lives in New York, but he's coming to Norway to shoot a pilot in a month's time, and he asked me if I wanted one of the roles. It's not set yet, but I hope so, and then that's going to be interesting. But I wouldn't mind doing more acting if I have the time to pursue it more in the future.
How can someone follow the comedic, the satire thing you have going on soon? And what would be the link to that, Instagram or anything like that?
Uh, that's just going to be local, like on the local cinema here. But let's see. I guess we have a Facebook page that some of it will be put on. It's called Klubben Humør. I will send it to you on the. I will send it to you on the messenger chat.
Okay, perfect. And I'll put it
There are
down.
some yeah, there are some few video clips there from earlier sketches. It's in Norwegian, of course, but still, maybe it's funny for someone not speaking Norwegian.
Absolutely. I'll put the link down in the bottom there.
Yeah, great.
Um, you're a carpenter by trade, actually. What made you go into that field, and what field are you in carpentry? What style do you do?
Mainly single family homes, cabins, and also all kinds of repairs like renovations. I was. It started when I was about 5, 6 years old with building small tree houses just on the playground outside our house. And then eventually I got into, well, educated myself to become a carpenter, or not like for furniture, but for wooden construction with, well, single homes, not big buildings. And I was employed for 10 years at a company building only new stuff, new houses and cabins. And for the last 10 years, me and a friend have had our own company doing also new builds, but also mostly renovation. From like everything from houses, cabins, boathouses, bridges, waterfront stuff, and also, of course, interior stuff, doing kitchens, bathrooms, everything inside the house. And I guess that's also in my blood. That's both my father and grandparents and great grandparents. Most of them have been working with their hands in construction and carpentry. And I like being active.
Absolutely. That's you know, has that helped you with anything like as far as like putting things onto your vehicle, or has that translated into your travels?
For me, not directly connected to carpentry, but the company that I was employed in for 10 years, I had a very, it was a good place to work because I could take time off when I wanted to for longer periods of time than I guess in other jobs. So it gave me the opportunity to travel more. And also now running my own company, I can plan my work around my trips. So I can plan my trip and then plan my work around that again. So it gives me the freedom to travel more and do more of what I want.
Yeah, well, that makes a ton of sense. And um, I wanted to ask you about some future trips. Do you have anything planned for the future, like a big rally or anything like that?
Yes, I am going on what's called the Budapest-Bamako Rally in 2026. It's also another amateur rally, one of the biggest in the world. I guess the Mongol Rally and the Budapest-Bamako Rallies are the two biggest amateur rallies that I know of. But this is a more planned one, more organized, where you have daily stages going down Africa, all the way down to Sierra Leone. I've done this rally also twice before, and this year, 24, and in 2018, I did this rally. And it's mainly the same route, but with different stages, going down through Morocco, Mauritania, Senegal, into Guinea, and then Sierra Leone. It's also a big rally. About 2026, there would be 330 teams. This year, there were about 350 and about 1,100 participants. It's based out of Hungary, so about half of the teams are Hungarian and the rest are international.
Wow, that's super interesting, and I've heard about that. Uh, um, Maybe I'll look to take part in that in the future at some point.
Yeah,
I would
yeah, you
I would
should.
love
It's
to do
it's,
that.
it's really really interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have to do another rally. But
Yeah, yeah.
so
But yeah.
what's that? Go ahead.
I was supposed to say you've also done a bit of traveling since the 19 rally.
Yeah, a bit. I didn't travel through COVID, but I uh, I just did a couple months in South America, which was awesome. It's really fun. Um, Had a good time. I had a good buddy who
Uh,
went with me for a month from my hometown in Alabama. It was awesome.
yeah.
Um, but not driving through. I was trying to get a motorcycle, but it didn't work out. So
Uh-huh.
I just took buses and flew around, but still
Okay.
fun.
Yeah. Great. Yes.
Um, so shifting gears back to Norway, where do you live in Norway currently? And do you have any recommendations on some spots there? I want to leave. If someone had only 2 weeks to spend in Norway, I want what would be the itinerary you build for them?
Well, I live all the way in the south of Norway, a small town called Flekkefjord. It's right. It's on like the main road, the E39, the coastal road going from Oslo all the way through the west coast of Norway, and right in the middle of between Kristiansand and Stavanger. And for us, like we're not landlocked, but I would say sea locked. We have the coast all the way here and the mountains going inland. So if we want to go somewhere by car, we have to drive all the way to Sweden, and from there it's possible to drive south to Europe. But usually we take the ferry. So for me, it's a 1 hour drive to the ferry, 3 hour crossing to Denmark, and from there we have the European continent like at our feet. But from me, if I would recommend a trip, it would be even coming from Oslo or coming from Denmark by vehicle up to Kristiansand. I would do the coastal road, going up to Bergen, and I guess you've seen pictures of the Atlantic Road. Up here,
Oh yeah.
it's not that big stretch of a road, but really, really beautiful and scenic. There are lots of fjords and lots of small ferries going all the way up through the west coast, and you can stop by the Pult Rock and other beautiful hikes up here, glaciers. For a 2 week trip, I guess I would spend 2 weeks going doing the coastal road, maybe all the way up to Trondheim, and then headed south again to Oslo, depending on, I guess, at least with vehicle. I just pulled up going from me here now to the absolute north of Norway, to North Cape. I still haven't been there myself, but that would be at least going the Norwegian coast all the way up would be a 40, 50 hour drive, I guess. Active hours driving, so that I guess you would spend at least, well, I wouldn't spend less than 2 weeks doing that trip on the coast all the way up. And then you could visit Lofoten also, which is very popular, even summer and winter for the Northern Lights. It's very popular these last few years in the summer. And also the last 10 years, the Norwegian currency have dropped by, I guess, half compared to the euro and the dollar. So it's actually, even though Norway is in a very expensive country, it's a lot cheaper now than it used to be because of the Norwegian currency.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I mean, that's a great route. And I think a lot of people are interested in the Northern Lights for sure. And what Norway has to offer is, as far as landscape, it's just a beautiful country.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, it's, as I said, I still haven't done that coastal road up there myself, but that's another plan I have for the future, doing the Norwegian coastal road all the way up to North Cape, and then going back to Bangkok, just crossing Russia all the way, and then headed down through China, and then back into Southeast Asia to do a bit of more driving around there. But of course, things have to quiet down a bit internationally before I can do that.
Yeah, a lot of things going on right now,
Yeah,
geopolitically.
yeah, geopolitically, yes.
Um, well, I wanted to ask if you were to if you were to leave the listeners with any advice, travel or otherwise, what do you think that would be?
I would say mainly do your own thing, go out there and explore and find out what's going on. Don't listen too much to propaganda or scare tactics from any kind of information source. I guess things are, the world is not as scary as one would think. And travel, travel is the, travel is the biggest classroom, I would say. Well, travel is the biggest
Absolutely.
source um, of personal experience and knowledge.
I would wholeheartedly agree with that. Wholeheartedly.
Yeah,
Um, and and I have to come up to Norway and visit you one day for sure. I've said that before, and you have to come to
yeah, I
Utah.
hope so. Yeah, you're
And
always welcome, and I will definitely come over to you at some point also.
that's awesome, man. And I appreciate you coming on and sharing your stories and sharing some of your knowledge as well. And I know
Thank you for having me.
absolutely. I know your time is very valuable. So just like everyone, and it's the most valuable possession we have. So
Yes,
thank you very much, Vidar.
definitely. Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Likewise.
And always remember, folks, the world is your oyster. That's a wrap on this episode of People, Places, and Things. Thanks for joining us on this journey. Whether you're dreaming of your next adventure or just love hearing stories from across the globe, we hope we inspired a bit of wanderlust in you today. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with fellow travelers. Until next time, keep exploring, keep dreaming, keep discovering new people, places, and things.